Welcome to That VidBlaster Guy. I'm Tom Sinclair, your host today, and I'm delighted to have you along for this show. Really excited about the show today. We're going to do an in-depth tour of our new Behringer mixer, the X1204USB, if you're making notes. But before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about the show if this is your first time joining us. VidBlaster is a great software that allows you to stream and record any kind of video, audio, over the internet, record it to your hard drive for production later. It's a great way to cut down on your post-production work by building it all in. As you see, I've got a very minimal lower third here below me, and it's a lot of fun to use. The show, That VidBlaster Guy, is built on the concept that one guy with one PC can do one awesome broadcast, and we are working towards the one awesome broadcast part. We're getting better and better, incrementally better, I would say, each time. Our shows generally have one of three themes. We're either focusing in on talk shows, we're focusing on church broadcasts, or we're focusing on the broadcast of sporting events. And today's show, we're going to kind of vary from that theme a little bit, but actually what we're going to talk about today is going to have to do with all three of those, because an internet broadcast has got to have audio. If you've ever watched something that somebody's uploaded to YouTube and it had no audio to it, how interesting is that? I was watching a soccer match over the weekend. In fact, it was the finals of the NAIA, which is a college division of sports in the United States. And the finals were being live streamed, pay-per-view. And the video was just really substandard. The cameras were not properly adjusted. They were in the wrong locations. They had, anyway, it was not worth the money that I spent on it. But the audio was very good. The announcers knew what they were doing, and they spoke very clearly, and the audio was clear. And so something that I probably might have turned off prematurely, I continued to watch because the audio was good and I could follow what was going on. It was kind of like radio with a little bit of video on the side. Well, we don't want you to do radio with a little bit of video. We want the video to be good too. But I think audio is really, really important. We did a show a while back with Mike Phillips, and Mike talked a lot about audio. He talked a lot about his experiences. But he really did drive home the point that people will listen and understand better than they will watch and understand. And so I think that's a good point. We did another show a while back with Martin Kay from Zen Computers in London. And Martin has an extensive background in audio and sound and mixers and mics and all the things that go along with that. And he and I correspond periodically. And he dropped me an email, I think yesterday. I'm not sure what day it was for him, but for me it was yesterday. And said, see, you're doing a show on mixers and audio. No need to bring me in on Skype on video, but how about I come alongside you and be a co-commentator with you on the audio? And I said, yeah, that's a pretty darn good idea. There's nothing like having somebody that knows more than you know to come alongside and sort of gently take you on the shoulder and steer you this direction or steer you back that direction. And so that's what Martin has done with us. And so I want to bring Martin on. Martin, are you there?
Yeah, certainly am.
There we are. All right. And right now it's about 5 after 8 in the United Kingdom. It's 5 after 2 o'clock here in Alabama. So 6-hour time difference. And Martin, I'm delighted to have you. As we talked in pre-show, I have extensive notes. I've got about 4 pages of notes on what we're doing. And let me bring this back into context for folks. Last week, I did a show that was basically a studio tour, and took a camera and ran around the studio here and showed you what I had and talked a little bit about it. We had a great discussion about it. And since then, I've gotten several notes and emails of folks saying, hey, you really kind of skimmed over the mixer. That's where I have more questions with the mixer than anything else. And one of the funny comments about that, I mean, this is a VidBlaster show, and somebody commented to me, said, you know, VidBlaster's easy, it's the mixer that's hard. So we're going to take some time, and Martin said, lose the PIP. And we're going to take some time and try to unpack what's going on in the mixer. This may be the kind of show that you have to watch more than once, or you have to kind of rewind it back and say, what did he say? What did he say? The what plugs into the what? So we're going to go through the whole thing. And I've tried to set up, let's see if I can get things set here. I've tried to set up a couple of cameras. Oops, get my lemonade out of the picture there. This is the Behringer X1204 USB. Sells in the United States for about $170. You probably want to shop that. I mean, if you're interested in this mixer, it's probably something that you'll want to shop around a little bit, because I was able to find it at B&H Photo up in New York for probably $15 cheaper than some of the other places that I would normally shop, like Musician's Friend or some others like that. So, Sweetwater Studios is one that I use a lot. So if you're interested in this, definitely shop it around. And let's see, I'm trying to read the chat room as we talk, and that's always dangerous to try to do two things at once. Lose the super. Not sure what a super is, Jim. You'll have to help me with that one. Anyway, here's the mixer, and we'll come back to it in just a second. I've also got a cam set up on the back of the PC so we can see where everything plugs in, and got something different that I have set up that I think you're going to enjoy. Let me see if I can get it queued up here. As we talk about things, I've figured out a way to kind of help by bringing in a graphic that will allow us to focus in on whatever it is we need to focus in on. And so I think it's going to be fun to talk about that, and hopefully this will make it a little easier for you guys to see exactly what we're talking about. Now, that was just trying to brag on myself right there and show you how we've got this new trick figured out. But let's talk a little bit about the mixer. And Martin, please feel free to dive in anytime you need to. And
Okay.
Martin, do you have chat up?
I do.
You do? Okay. Because sometimes my chat window gets hidden, so if you see something that somebody says in chat, if you would kind of keep an eye on that for me, I would appreciate it. Let's start out talking about the mixer then. And, oops, let me get that chat window off the screen. There we go. And I've got one channel. Let's see. Let's try to do this again. We'll use our good handy dandy toy here. There's a channel. Channel number 1, as you can see, is unused. There's nothing plugging in either the mic port or the line in port. Same thing for channel 2, same thing for channel 3. Channel 4 is an XLR mic that is my shotgun mic. This is the Sony ECM NV1 that used to attach to my Sony PD150 camcorder. And I had it on hand. I said, let's try it as a mic. And so I've been using that. You know, funny thing, over the weekend I was able to find somebody on eBay that had an Audio Technica. I think it's a AT897, which is a shotgun mic about twice the length of this one. And based on the specs, looks like it's going to do a better job. So that's supposed to arrive tomorrow. Anyway, we'll update you on that when the time comes. Channel 4 is my mic, and you can see the EQs, which are these 3 buttons right here, are popped up just a little bit because I've got volume up as high as I wanted, and I thought, well, I'll just use some extra EQ there on all of them, and maybe that will help get me some more volume. And then the red channel going all the way across is the aux send number 1, and I've got that one turned up just a little bit so that Martin can hear me, and aux send number 2, the orange one I'm not using, and then balance, and you can see that the volume control is set at 0. Channel number 5, right up here, it's actually 5/6, is got one input on the mono channel, which is the left side, coming in from this device over here, which is a Behringer UCA222. Now, this little guy is kind of nice because it's a USB, essentially it's a sound card. It's got 2 inputs and 2 outputs, and a connection where it connects to USB on the PC. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on that one in just a minute. But essentially, this is taking audio from VidBlaster and allowing that to come in on this channel. And so the audio from VidBlaster would be the players and, yeah, I guess just the players at this point. So, and that's, as you can see, volume control is all the way up. We've got a little bit of aux send so that Martin, who is our Skype guest today, can... Martin, were you able to hear the intro?
Yeah, I came through.
Okay. Okay, very good. Very good. 1 second, let me move something here so I can see. And then going over to channel 7 and 8. 7 and 8 has got an input, again, on the left side, which is the mono side, that red plug there. And that red plug is coming from the PC, the speaker out. And let's see if I can show you where that's coming from here. That's going to be that red plug right there, which is one of several speaker outs. Seem to be the easiest one to get to work. And let's go back to our mixer shot for just a second. I'd love to give credit to whoever came up with this this video. I mean, this ability to draw on the screen, because boy, it's a great idea, and it sure makes things like these much easier. Also, and I think it's just out of sight. Let's see if I can bring it back into the camera a little bit. Nope, I can't. The cord's too tight. I had problems with a ground hum of some kind, and so got a ground loop isolator from Radio Shack. I think it was $20, and it killed the hum immediately. And this is the audio coming in from the PC, coming in from Skype. So that's the control for Martin right there. The next thing, and I'm not, this is a review of the mixer, but it's a review of what I use on the mixer, so I'm going to skip over things that are not being used here. The red dial right there is the aux send 1 volume control, and so that's going to take whatever I've got here and here, which you see those are set about 12 o'clock. Those are aux channel 1, which contain my audio, and the PC audio, which is VidBlaster, and it's controlled by this. And that will go out. I don't know if you can see that little black connector right up there at the top. That's aux send number 1. And that's actually going out to this little guy. This is the UC222. It's about 40 bucks. There's also another version of it, it's UCA222. And there's a UCA202, which is the exact same thing, but it's a different color. And let's see if we can get it in there. That's the same device, different color. It's UCA202. If you have a choice between the two, I'd get the cheaper one. The red one that was in the picture comes with some software. And if you don't intend to use its software, then no sense paying for it or paying extra for it. And both of these devices, both the UCA222 and the Behringer mixer, the UCA222 is a Behringer product, both of them use the same driver. And so installing the driver for the mixer automatically installs the driver for the UCA222. That tends to be a little confusing, and so we'll get to that in just a second. So make a note that don't let me forget to come back and tell you about being confusing. Martin?
Yeah, I was going to say this might be a point, a time to talk about the fact that those aux sends can be set pre-fade or post-fade. I'm not sure what you've got them set on, but there are different uses for setting it pre-fade or post-fade.
They are, boy, let's see if I can zoom in on this mixer a little bit without getting everything out of whack.
Yep. Okay, so those aux1 sends.
Okay, I think that did it.
Yep, you can see that. But they've got a switch so that you can set them.
One second here while I get back in my seat. The button is depressed for both of those, Martin, which I think means that it's a pre-fade. Would you explain the difference on that one? I understand the concept, but not well enough to explain it.
Okay. If it's set to pre-fade, it takes its signal before the main slider. Now, what that means is that whatever level you set on that control will send the signal irrespective of the main fader, whether that's up or down. So, for example, if we look at the channel that's got your microphone that you're talking into, if you set it pre-fade, it means that you can fade that channel down so that the sound isn't being transmitted, which you might want to do if you were playing in a bit of video from a VidBlaster player, so you had an insert. But at the same time, if you wanted to talk to your Skype guest who is receiving that aux feed, then by having the switch in pre-fade, it means that they'll always be able to hear you, even if your microphone isn't faded up into the main output. Whereas if it's post-fader, it takes the signal after the fader, after the slider. So if you fade your microphone down and exclude it from the main output, it's also excluded from the aux send. So the person at the other end of the Skype call won't be able to hear you.
So if I want to talk bad about you, I've got to do it as a post-fade. That is, the button has to be up. But
well, it needs to be both post-fade and have the fader down. I mean, the other thing you can do, obviously, is just reach for the aux fade knob and turn that down.
Well, I'm probably in trouble either way, so I'll just not say anything bad about you. How about that? Okay, very good. All right, let's see if we can zoom back out again without causing any kind of major trauma.
Similarly, you might want to hear what your remote guest is saying while the microphone isn't faded up. So you might want to have a conversation while some other piece of video is being played out. And that's when things like the aux sends and the pre-fade listen buses are both useful.
Okay, I think I understood what you were saying, but let me zoom back in. and make sure.
I mean, the idea of having all these different sends and all these different mixing buses is that you can set up several entirely different mixes. So there's one mix that's actually going out on your main broadcast, that's what the public hear, but you might need to set up completely different mixes with only some of the sources for some of the time, either for people on the end of a Skype call or just for yourself to listen to.
Outstanding. I don't think I'm there yet.
There's plenty more to explore.
But this is intriguing. This is intriguing. So I would, okay. It took me the longest time, and somebody finally explained to me that all the red buttons go together. That the inputs are up and down, but if you want to send it out, you would send it out by adjusting it horizontally. And boy, just that little tidbit just made it fall into place for me.
It's what they call a matrix, basically. So you've got inputs in one direction and outputs in the other direction.
Aha.
Perpendicular.
Gotcha. And here on this particular mixer, I hope you can see in the video, the red and the you know what, I'm using my fingers when I've got this really cool pointer over here. The red line and the yellow line, the orange line. Notice how the background is dark, and then that corresponds to the dark background here, which is to say basically these guys are related to these guys. And in fact, these 6 red controls right here for aux1 end up getting summed up right in here. Now we're not going to get into the next set of red knobs over here because they're the returns, because we're not using returns. And I want to stay within at least a general knowledge of what I'm talking about right here. Thank you, Martin. Excellent. Let's see if we have any questions in the chat room so far about this. Either they're all more knowledgeable or else they're overwhelmed.
There is a question there about, can the aux bus be set up as a camera intercom? Yes, it can. If you had a number of extra microphones from the camera operators and you had enough aux buses so that you could set one aux bus up with pre-fade sends, so you weren't fading up the camera operator's microphones onto the main output, but if they were all onto that aux bus plus the operator's microphone or the director's, and they all get sent a feed of the output, then yes, they'd be able to talk to each other.
Wow. I want to try that. That, you know, I think, I see Jim has asked that question. For a sporting event, that would be perfect. And I know that, especially if you're using a Ballon, you can receive audio from all of your camera folks, and in fact, send video over the same Cat5 cable, as long as it's just standard definition.
You would be able to do that with that mixer you've got, provided you weren't using that aux1 bus for a Skype call. You could use it as an intercom bus.
Right. And I've actually set that up using a separate mixer because I didn't know how to do it with the one mixer I had. But this is a breakthrough. I'm going to have to go back and listen to Martin's part a second time. And welcome to the other Martin. Glad to have you with us. Okay, let's switch over for just a second. We'll come back to the mixer as we need to, but I wanted to come back over to this device for just a second and talk about what it is, where it comes from. As you can see, it's got 4 audio channels on it, and I'm only using 2. And the input on this little red guy right here, the red guy is the UCA222. The input is from the mixer. It's from the aux1. So basically, I'm sending out to Martin that aux mix minus feed, and that's coming in to this device. and this is connected to the PC by USB, and so it ends up going in. Let's see if we can pull it up here on the screen. It ends up going in right there on, no, excuse me, right there on USB. Nothing fancy. Now, the output of the UCA222 is going to, let's see, channel 5, 6. That's going to be this one right here. And that is going to carry, let's see what audio that's going to carry. That's going to carry the VidBlaster player audio. So the UCA, at least in this particular setup, and I may have it not set as cleanly as it needs to be set, but the UCA is performing two separate functions. One is it's acting as an input to send to the PC the aux send, the mix minus that goes to the Skype caller, my Skype guest, and then it's receiving from the PC the VidBlaster player audio, and so that allows me to control both of those with that one device. It's a really neat card. Apparently Behringer has figured out how to have both the mixer and the UCA222 operate on the same PC at the same time using the same drivers. And the way that it identifies those is one is essentially driver number 1 and the second one is driver number 2. Device number 1 and device number 2. And when you look in the sys tray at your sound devices, if you have more than one installed, you'll see them numbered like that. On my particular PC, I actually used to have 2 of those sound cards installed, and so I've got numbered 1 through 3, and then I stopped using 2, so I have 1 and 3, which is a little confusing sometimes. Let's moving right along. Let's see in case anybody's got a question. So far, we've baffled them. Let's take a look at the back of the PC. That's not very complicated, but we can see here is where the UCA222 connects. Here is where the Behringer mixer connects. It's a USB mixer. And then the third connection is the speaker out that goes to the mixer, channel 7 and 8, which is Martin's audio, or my Skype guest's audio. And so that's what brings the audio into the mixer, goes out to the mixer, gets mixed up, comes back in to the PC, and is broadcast out in that manner. Let me change something here, and I'm just going to go to this green screen for a second and see if I can bring up the Windows. There we go. Sound devices. Because all of this comes into play too and can get really confusing at this point. I've got 3 playback devices. Why in the world would we call it playback? Anyway, we've called it playback devices, and here they're all 3 speakers. The first one, Behringer number 3, is our UCA 222 card. The second one, the Behringer USB WDM Audio 2.8.40, is the mixer. And the third one, speakers Realtek High Definition Audio. And we'll get back to that one in just a second. On the recording side, and this is basically going to be the line ins to the PC, you can see line in number 3, that's the UCA card, and the volume meter on the right side is showing the volume of what's being sent to Martin. The second line in, the Behringer USB WDM audio 2.8.40 is the mixer, and there's a little bit less audio coming into that, and I was working on that beforehand saying, wonder why that's the case. Maybe that's the reason why my audio is so low sometimes. So I'll have to do some. Martin, any ideas on that one?
Yes, I mean, the question is, how do you actually line up your audio from the mixer to Flash Media Encoder, assuming that that's what you're streaming with? I guess we haven't got to Flash Media Encoder yet, so maybe that's the time to look at that question.
Okay, yeah, and that would be this particular device, and I've noticed you can go to levels, and this level is set for some reason at 69. Doesn't matter what I set it to, the PC changes it back to 69. I'm sorry?
Just try changing it right now and see what happens on the little bar graph meter.
I want to change it to 100, and there's virtually no change on the bar graph meter. Well, let's go back to properties, check levels. Oh, it's still at 100 this time. Well, let's leave it there and see what happens. Martin, am I blowing you out?
No, not at all. The reason why nothing much happens is that those controls are in fact linear controls rather than normally the case for audio potentiometers. Any sort of audio control is that they're logarithmic, because that's how we hear things. But for some reason, those Windows controls are linear. So when you go down to 50%, you only go down by 6 dB. When you go to a quarter, you're another 6 dB. When you go to an eighth, it's another 6 dB. So it doesn't work in the sort of progressive way that you would expect. Certainly not like a hardware mixer.
So whoever set this up didn't know anything about audio.
Correct.
Wow. How frustrating for people that do know things about audio. Well, this is going to get worse before it gets better, I think. Okay, let's see. Folks in the chat room, I hope that the changes here have not blasted you guys out at home. If you have, please let me know. Next up on our tour is going to be VidBlaster. And let's see if I can do a little capture window here. And capture just a select area. We're going to capture, oops, that didn't work. We'll try again. We're going to capture just the audio module in VidBlaster. And I'm going to have to capture more than that because I want to show you the menu. So let me try that again. There we go. Okay, so we're going to right click on the audio module. That's an interesting little jitter that's being introduced there. And you can see, well, you can see part of it, that we're currently using the Behringer, which is the mixer, as our line in VidBlaster. Now, the line in VidBlaster basically only affects what we are recording, because the way that I'm running this setup right here is that I'm not using VidBlaster to stream the audio. I'm using Flash Media Live Encoder to stream the audio. And so let's see, and let's do one other thing. Let's pull a player in. We'll just dump it right on top of the audio module for a second. And we'll go down to audio device in this player, and you can see that the Behringer number 3, that's the UCA222, is what's receiving the output from the mixers. So I'm sending my players to the separate sound card, but the audio for VidBlaster is coming from the mixer. Okay, boy, that was no fun. All right, let's pull in a little flash here. So we'll set up another little screen cap here just a sec. Trying to be conservative with my modules. And we'll do another capture.
Just to answer a question that's come up in the chat room, is the audio module only for watching the audio level, or what's it used for? Well, it is used for any audio that actually passes through VidBlaster. Now that's audio that goes out through VidBlaster's streamer module, or audio that goes into VidBlaster's recorder module. So it does control the level into those two modules. Unlike what's happening now, where Tom's going to show how he can pick up the audio in Adobe Flash Media Encoder directly without it going through VidBlaster.
Exactly. I definitely couldn't have said that well myself. And I tend to steer, and this is just personal preference, I tend to steer away from using the VidBlaster streamer because I like the number of options that I have available in Flash Media Live Encoder. VidBlaster uses Flash Media Live Encoder anyway to do streaming unless you're doing the Windows Media Encoder or something else like that. And I think Flash just gives me so many more options, especially if you're in a special situation where you have a limited internet speed, or you have a lower power PC and you need to be able to adjust things in order to take advantage of what power you do have. I think Flash gives you a lot more tools in that way, but we're just going to talk about audio right now, and so let me capture a little closer here because I just want to show you the audio section. There we go. That's the part I wanted you to see. Ignore all this stuff over here on the sides if you were. This is the audio section, which there are basically 3 columns in Flash Media Live Encoder. And in the encoding options, one of the sections is video and one of the sections is audio. And so we're going to be addressing the audio part. And you can see I've selected the device, which is my mixer, the Behringer mixer, because the Behringer mixer now has the full mix. Everything that I want streamed is available in the Behringer mixer line in. Now this line in, remember, is the USB port that is the connection between the mixer and the PC. I've also selected MP3 format, channels mono. We're not streaming anything stereo right now. A channel rate of 22050. Martin, I don't know whether it was you told me or Mike Phillips, but that for voice, we really don't need as wide a spectrum as we would if we were streaming music.
It was probably Mike who told you, but I would have said exactly the same thing.
Okay.
So basically, the way that sampling ratios or sampling rates work is that the frequency response that you can get from a given sampling rate is roughly half or less. So in other words, to do a full spectrum where with music you've got high frequencies up to perhaps 20 kilohertz, you need at least 40 kilohertz in the sampling rate. But speech barely goes above 10 kilohertz. So therefore you only need 22 kilohertz to do a pretty good job of capturing speech.
And I sort of bumped into this when I was kind of bandwidth restricted and was looking for every way to cut. And I think I even used a sample rate that was, the 11,000 or the 11 kilohertz with a bit rate of maybe 12 or 16, something like that. And the audio wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was what you could hear. Here today, we're doing sort of a medium at 22 kilohertz, which ends up being Flash allows several choices of bit rate. I think it was 48, 40, and 32, so I just picked the one in the middle. And then you can see the volume control there, which actually is a slider that allows me to adjust. And funny thing, streaming with the cast, I find I have to give a lot more volume in Flash Media Live Encoder than I did with Ustream. In Ustream, the volume control would probably be set about here. Don't understand it. Martin, any ideas on that one?
What I'd want to see at the moment is if you could screen capture the audio meters. I don't know whether they're visible.
I bet I could.
Because at the end of the day, it's not so much about where the slider is, it's about what the actual level is. So if there's more level coming in, then the slider doesn't have to be as high. If there's not much level in, then you have to push it up. But the important thing is the actual level on the meters. The meters are the important thing.
Okay, this is the Flash Media Live Encoder. And you're not seeing the whole thing. Let's see. Well, maybe you were seeing the whole thing. Yep, I guess that's it. No. Sorry about that. Still struggling to get this stuff figured out. Let's see if I can give you the whole thing. That's it. That's the full bar. And for those of you that are not really familiar with Flash Media Live Encoder, this is Flash Media Live Encoder version 3.2, which is a free download from Adobe. You'll have to register as a user, but they'll allow you to download it. It's free. It's great. And this volume meter sits in the top left-hand corner of the streaming window, which shows the input video feed and the output video feed.
I don't know that I am seeing the live feed at the moment, but the meter that I'm seeing doesn't seem to have anything moving on it. So, and I've just seen a posting in the chat room that says just lost audio.
Ah.
The one says that sound level is too low. So, should you be seeing some green segments lighting up?
Yes. I wonder if we're frozen. Check. Yeah, looks like Flash is jammed up for some reason.
Someone said audio back.
Audio back. Good. Well, let's move the audio up a little bit in Flash. Fortunately, we can adjust that during the show. Okay, let's see if that's any better, guys. And video frozen. Interesting. Good thing this is not a video show. Well, let's see. We're going to stop the Flash stream for just a second. And we'll restart it.
This is one of those instances where you really need a complete second system from which to take all these pictures and do all the messing about. It doesn't affect your actual transmission system.
Yeah, but that would violate my principle of one man, one PC.
True.
Of course, I guess if it's a demo, you could say it's okay. We're just using it as an example. Okay, let's see. All right, Martin, is yours unfrozen?
Yep, there is indeed movement.
Okay. Okay. All right, so the volume meter on the left side looks more like a volume meter you would see on a mixer. I think Mike Phillips used to say that we just want to tickle the yellows.
Yeah. You certainly want to be hitting the yellow, and if you're never hitting the yellow, it's definitely too low.
Well, and I noticed that your audio is not hitting the yellow, but mine is. We can bump you up a tad.
Yeah, I mean, I can send a bit more, but probably not much more than that.
Okay. Yeah, Gavin is saying that your audio is low. So.
Well, probably the best thing is to turn up the preset gain on the mixer, if that's possible, or the output of whatever the device is that it's playing through. I guess this is one of the things we should have spent a little bit of time lining up before the show.
Oh, golly, that wouldn't have been any fun. Well, let's just take a quick look. I think that is already set at 100%. Yep, that one's doing 100%. And one of the criticisms that I've heard of the Behringer mixer is that some people have trouble getting enough volume out of it. And that has been my experience too. But that's okay. I like what it does, and I think I can compensate for that in other ways. All right, let's move along from Flash Media Live Encoder, because I think we've probably put our audience to sleep. Either that or you guys are just way too geeky. Let's take a look in Skype, because that's part of the mix here. And so I'm going to bring up my Skype window and see if we can't do a screen cap on that. And get a decent size to the window, and we will do a capture. And I think that'll do it. Let's see if that'll do. Okay, so in Skype we're going to go to Tools, we're going to go to Options, we're going to go to Audio Settings. And in Audio Settings, the number one setting here is for the microphone, and that is the line in from the Behringer. Again, this is the Behringer mixer, not the Behringer sound card. And so the microphone is taking the entire mix, whatever the mix might be, coming from the mixer, and that's going to Martin at Skype. So if I fade out something, it gets faded out for him. And you can see the volume meter setting in Skype, again, probably non-standard, huh, Martin?
I'm really not sure how it's set up. Did you just say that it was taking the entire mix? Because I thought you would be sending me not the entire mix, but the aux send.
Well, that's a good point. Maybe I've got it set wrong.
Because otherwise, you'd be sending me my own sound, which would be coming back with a delay, and it would make it very difficult for me to talk. And I'm not hearing my own sound coming back from you, so I'm assuming I am getting the mix minus.
Well, let's see in my show notes where the mix minus is going. You know what? I think I've got it set up wrong, and I think Skype is just canceling it out. Because I think technically, if I were to have this set right, and I don't know if I can, I don't dare set it in the middle of a call, but I think it should be set for the line in 3, which is the UCA, because that's what's receiving the mix. Isn't that interesting? That we've got it set wrong, but it's still working.
It is working, but it is, I think you're right, that Skype is actually cutting out. Whenever I talk, it cuts out whatever's coming in. So it's automatically going into a single duplex mode where you only get a one-way conversation.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Well, We're not going to drop the call now, but I'll make that adjustment later. That's good to know. And folks, as you can tell, there are times when Skype does great work for you, and times when there's a call that I had I think two shows ago, where the caller, the guest, was getting terrible feedback and crackling. Didn't happen on our end, but Skype was trying to do something with the audio along the way, and whatever it was, it just wasn't working. The other settings that are worth noting here is the speaker setting. And Martin's audio, when he comes in, is coming in over the speaker Realtek high definition audio. You can see the blue balls here. Those are ways that I have said this is what the audio level will be. I'm not using the Skype automatically adjust microphone settings and automatically adjust speaker settings. I'd rather have a little bit more control over it than that. And the speaker's high-tech definition audio is the speaker jack on the back of the PC. And that's going into the mixer at 7 and 8, which is how we're controlling Martin's volume when we need to kind of get him out of the mix. I think that's it. I think we've covered it all. Let's see where we are. Okay, so I need to make an adjustment to my setup on the Skype end and get that mix minus. Fortunately, today Skype worked, but the one thing that you can count on with Skype is that you can't count on Skype to be the same from week to week. Sometimes they're gonna make some tweaks and changes that affect us. In fact, when I first started Skype tonight, it wanted to update to a new version of Skype. And if you're ever tempted to do that right before a broadcast, just go ahead and shoot yourself in the foot right then and get it out of the way, because sooner or later that's what's going to happen. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. So as a basic concept, we've got several different devices all working together. We've got a mixer, we've got a separate USB sound card, we've got the PC's built-in audio, we've got VidBlaster's audio, we've got Flash Media Live Encoder audio, and we've got Skype audio. And all of that is meshed together in a very carefully calculated manner, or haphazard in my case, and works most of the time. The concept of dividing it all up is so that you can have more control over it as you need to. If Martin were to suddenly have a fit of coughing, we could cut out his audio. If a video player in VidBlaster was accidentally set to, if an audio player in VidBlaster was accidentally set to loop and wanted to continue to play the theme song over and over and over again, I can just reach over to the mixer and turn it off immediately. I like having that amount of control. It sounds like, based on the question in the chat room, that maybe we can put together a little demo on how to do the camera intercom. I think that would be especially useful, because there are lots of ways to do that, and some are better than others. Martin, any thoughts on this before we move on to the next subject?
One of the things that you mentioned just a few minutes ago was the fact that you sometimes have a bit of trouble trying to get enough level out of the mixer.
Yes.
And the comment I was going to make on that is that a lot of these mixers, including the Behringer mixer, are principally designed for doing sound reinforcement, in other words, public address systems, and music recording. And in both of those instances, people are usually fairly close to a microphone. You get plenty of level going into it, so you don't need much gain on the individual channels. But where you're doing speech recording, where the microphones are a bit further away, as you tend to do in TV shows, drama recording, things like that, then they quite often don't have as much gain as more specialist mixers, which are designed for doing location sound work. It's certainly an issue that I've come across in the past. How you get around that is that you would either need microphones that inherently have a higher output, or you might even need little external preamps to boost the sound before it goes into the mixer. But it is a problem with a lot of these mixers, and they're very attractively priced, but they are principally aimed at music recording and public address sound reinforcement. There is a difference.
Excellent comment. Now, in your experience, have you encountered mixers that are designed for the purpose that we're using them for?
Yeah, there's lots of manufacturers, but they're not necessarily the budget end of the market, which you see in music stores, because a lot of these things, like the Behringers, are sold by stores that are also selling musical instruments and recording software, multi-tracking software, all of that sort of thing.
Right.
You need to look at manufacturers who aim at the broadcast market. There's a lot of stuff around on eBay, as ever, you'll be pleased to hear. I could probably put together a list, and we can sort of add it to the show notes, or maybe feature one or two of the mixers that I've got. But the sort of things I use are intended for location recording, where you've got microphones several feet away from people. So they've typically got either 10 or 20 dB more gain than a mixer that's designed for music work.
That makes a lot of sense. Very good. Well, yeah, I'd love it if you'd put together a list. We can definitely add it to the show notes. And that is a comment worth some exploration and more research. In fact, I was trying to research that subject because you mentioned it in the email yesterday, and I was just hit a dead end. I didn't really know what I was searching for, but now that I know, I'll look into that. And that's good, because there are companies out there that are manufacturing mixers that are probably getting tons of complaints from folks that are using them for the purpose that we're using them for, because they're using something that they're using the wrong tool for the job. And if you use the wrong tool, you can't get the desired result, because that's not what the tool was designed and intended to do. And so adding a mic preamp, okay, that might help a bit. Interesting. I like that thought. More equipment.
Either that, or simply microphones, normally condenser microphones, have a higher output, particularly the ones that use 48 volt power. You'll find they might have about 10 dB more output than dynamic microphones, and that in itself is going to help.
Okay. Good. Very good. I think the mic I'm using right now is I know it's a phantom powered. I assume it's 48 volts. And I think the new Audio Technica that's coming in will be the same way. So we'll see if we have any difference. Very good. All right. Well, before we close the show, I promised that I would show you guys how I did the trick on doing the graphics on the screen. So let me see if I can cue that up. Get all this other stuff kind of out of the way here. And let me do a screen capture of the whole screen. Okay. And what we've got is good old Windows Paint. Nothing fancy at all. And Windows Paint is set up with a screen cap where it essentially becomes part of a chroma key setup. So I'm using my video effects module set to chroma key, and the source number 1 is actually this window, and source number 2 is, something like this camera shot right here. So I would take, if I wanted to add a graphic, in this case, I would simply select the image, drag it over, and that would become a circle on the screen. Or select another image, drag it over, and let's see. I don't know if that's going to work now. Oh yeah, it does. We've got a little different size screen, but you can see the effect is still the same. So on one sense, what you're looking at there is my paint window, and then simply the green is just being replaced with whatever is in the camera shot. And you can play around with this. There are lots of good uses for it. And I think you know, you can also do, you know, text on the screen. So that's fun. You can do other things besides preformed graphics. We can just use a pen. Let me get a big wider tip here. We can use a pen and literally draw on the screen. If we were outlining a football play on instant replay, we could talk about where our players were going to go, just like they do on ESPN. Anyway, that's very simple. Play with it some. I think you'll have some fun with it. I know I did, and it was a lot of fun. Martin, I want to thank you for ringing me up via email yesterday and suggesting that you come on, because it has really added a lot of depth and correction to the show here. Thank you so much. And in fact, folks, I had intended to do this mixer tour pre-recorded. And when Martin said that he would be available if needed, I said, forget about pre-recorded, let's do live. And of course, live is not quite as polished, but I think it's a lot more fun and definitely added to have Martin as part of the show. So thank you very much, my friend. It was great to have you on with us again today.
It's always a pleasure being here.
I thought for a second I'd cut your audio off, and I was like, oh no, here's an audio show, and I'm screwing it up at the very end. All right. Well, folks, we have reached the end of our time. It's been a pleasure to be with you today. I'm Tom Sinclair, that VidBlaster guy. I do want to give you a little promo about next week. On next Tuesday's show, Sheldon Neal with Slice TV will come on and share with us some of the exciting things he did in the fall with football and talk about what he's doing now with basketball. Sheldon is, I think, if I understand it correctly, has an all HD setup on video and is putting together his team there in Kansas City and making things happen. So that'll be next Tuesday, 3 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock in the United Kingdom. I'm Tom Sinclair, that VidBlaster guy. Have a great VidBlaster day. And let's see if I can do this right. We'll go out with the credits.